Welcome to this video. It's a campground series on some of the events and duties, questions, campers, the things that go on at the campground. As I mentioned earlier in one of my videos, my wife and I, Debbie, do campground hosting in Montana in the summertime. And in one of those videos, I've had answered questions about campground hosting. So if you have more, please let me know in the comment section below here. And if you enjoy this and want to see more about campground hosting, please subscribe to the channel. But today we're going to look at our group site, a site that is reservable in advance for a lot of weddings, family reunions, all sorts of activities. And today we're going to look at one of the more unusual activities. These folks are here every year and they're just a lot of fun. So hang around and take a look at what's to come when we talk about the Flintnappers. Good morning, Papa Bruce here again. Today we're going to take a look at some of the facilities we have around the campground under this segment of campground hosting. And right now I'm driving to an area that's sort of set off by itself. It is called a group campsite. And in the group campsite we often get all sorts of interesting activities. And this one is one of the more unique activities, there's no doubt about that. It's called flintnapping. And these folks come from all over the Pacific Northwest to Montana. About once a week, every year I see them here, and they'll sit around and they'll make arrowheads and all sorts of beautiful work. So with that, let's head on down the road. That is obsidian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're taking off some of the...
I take off the little shards along the edge and makes it stronger, and it gives my copper something to grip on better.
Oh. Sure, lots to see here, and let's take a minute and walk over and meet someone who's a real expert at this and has helped Jackson, who you'll see here soon, give him advice and instruction on making his own knife out of a napped blade that he was given by one of the other ones with a nice handle. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, here we are with one of our participants. Get a chance to hear a little bit about what he does. Go ahead, please. Tell us who you are.
I'm Gary Steele. I have a program called Gettin'Primitive, where I teach primitive skills, weapons and tools, how to make and how to use them. And I like to kind of explain the advancement of primitive weaponry We've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and for most of that time, this was about as most of it advanced weaponry as we had, which was quite efficient. But the limitations was they were hunting and defending their families against very large animals. And something like this worked pretty good, except you had to be really close to use it. So about 30 or 40,000 years ago, they figured out how they could take a much smaller spear. This one here isn't very primitive, but it's the same idea, and this is called the atlatl. And they figured out now they could take a much smaller spear with a handle like this, and they've tapped into mechanical advantage, and now they can kill something much farther away. And so that like totally changed the game for primitive hunters.
So this came before the bow, I take it?
Oh yes. People think that the bow is really old. It's been around forever. In North America, the bow has only been around for about 1,500 years. And for 30 to 40,000 years prior to that, it was the atlatl. So the bow is actually a pretty modern weaponry. But I do make bows, teach people how to use them. This is one that I made. This one's made out of hawthorn. It's 40 pounds. And this is...
what type of wood did you say that was?
This is hawthorn.
Hawthorn.
It grows locally around here. Has big thorns on it, but it's very tough wood. And I try to use the local woods around here, for same woods that the native people used for history. So, for at least as long as bows have been being made.
Now you mentioned local wood around here, and we're in Montana right now, but you mentioned earlier when we were talking, I know you spent some time in Arizona, but this is a local Montana wood, or?
This is local Montana wood, and so I gather the local materials here to make things out of, and then when I go down to Arizona during the wintertime, I do the same down there.
I see.
I gather wood down there, and let's see. Here's one of the things that I make. I have kids make these also, and I also sell them on Etsy. This is a primitive arrow or blade made from obsidian. This is a piece of cholla wood from Arizona. I glued the blade in with pine pitch glue, a combination of pine pitch, charcoal, and moose turd, and then I wrapped it with rawhide. And this is real popular. Kids really like to make these.
Actually, in just a few minutes on the video, you'll see where Jackson, my grandson, made his knife with this instruction.
Yes, he made a knife yesterday. He used a piece of deer antler instead of wood, but it's still the same technique, same materials. And then also, the early people, if they didn't have stone available to make blades out of, they could use bone, which this is made from the leg bone of a deer, and you can make this with just the rocks and rubbing it on rocks and breaking it and rubbing it on rocks. You can make a blade like this out of bone, which isn't quite as good as stone, but it's way better than your fingernail. Let's see, what else do I have in here? Here's an early scalpel or X-Acto knife, and it uses a small flake of stone, which can be extremely sharp, and then it's just squeezed in between here, and by sliding this large bead up and down, I can take the stone out.
That's amazing.
Put another one in. Put a stone in, and
that's actually how the X-Acto knives work now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is all natural ingredients, just a stick, an antler, a piece of stone, and a little bit of rawhide down here so that so it doesn't continue splitting. But you could do surgical work with this.
Well, this has been really interesting. For everybody watching, down below in my comment section of this video, you'll see all the information about the Etsy page that he has with a lot of his material, products, that type of thing that are available. So take a look at that and get in touch with him that way. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You know what that is?
Looks like some kind of cactus.
I'm going to try to poke down. I threw a little high there, so if I could.
Wow. You see that? He almost hit that. Look at that. You put it in there and it closes it.
Well, it looks to me like this worked out pretty well. I'm going to walk up here and get a better shot. Yeah, you got him. Nice shooting.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on the campground hosting. It did obviously spotlight our group site and one of the many interesting activities that we experience every year.